good and faithful friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. I've got a little project here that has my name on it. At least that's according to Caleb. He got cold shivers on this one. He says, you better take this one. This, according to the customer, apparently this has been in like 3 different shops and he is still not satisfied. Challenge accepted. I hope I can fix it. I haven't even looked at it yet. I promise you I have not opened the case. It's been in here for a couple of months actually, waiting for me to look at it. So it's high time I find the time to look at it. So here we go. Apparently it's a mandolin. I'm just going by the stories I've heard so far. I have not opened the case, I promise you. So here we go. Caleb said he thinks it's a Sam Bush mandolin. Oh yeah, it's been played, I can tell you that. There's a look at it. You can see it's been played. I can see some wires inside it, so it's got a pickup on the inside there based on that. It's, got some pretty good wear marks. It's a pretty mandolin. It's got a nice back on it. There's no finish on the neck really to speak of, which is nice. It makes them slick to play. Looks like a pretty decent mandolin. The action, just at first glance, the action looks crazy high. I can tell you for black and white certainty, there's way too much underbow in the neck. Right there's 3/4 of his problem. This thing looks like a ski ramp. I don't know if you can see down it or not. I don't know if you can see it. Try to get it to focus on maybe my hand here or something up here at the neck. Anyway, it's a real ski ramp. It really is. It's shoot, I don't know if we could even measure that, but it's way high. I mean, gee whiz, I can see under the string. You could throw a dog under those strings. Just me holding it here and holding it here. I seriously could throw I could throw a Yorkshire Terrier under there. Okay, yeah, it's got a huge underbow. No wonder he's dissatisfied. That doesn't take rocket science to figure that one out. I don't know, I haven't read his letter yet. Maybe that's not even what he's complaining about. Maybe he's complaining about something else. So I'll read the letter and I'll get back to you here in just a minute. Well, I pretty much hit the nail on the head on this one. It's just I promise you I had not read this ahead of time. This fellow's name is Greg, and Greg says, I own a Sam Bush signature model mandolin from 2005 that needs some special attention. And I say, boy howdy, does it ever. I have sent it to a few luthiers, and none of them have made it right. It's really the fretboard neck setup that makes the intonation not work perfectly like it should. I think it could use some attention towards the neck and the fretboard. Oh yeah, I don't disagree with that. He says, even with the truss rod tightened, I can still see a bow or a dip when I look down it. This may be beyond truss rod tightening. It's pretty bowed, it really is. Caleb could see it from his desk, and he's 15 feet minimum away from where I'm at. So there you go. At one time, this was my main mandolin. It had a great sound. And he says, instead of just selling it, I think I should try to get it set up right and give it another try. He said, I had the neck narrowed down to 1 1/16 at the nut, and that left the binding not so perfect. Maybe that's something you could do too. Well, I don't know. Now you're starting to get into that cosmetic work, and well, to be honest, binding doesn't feel that terrible. I could maybe clean that up a little bit by I'm just feeling it right now as I speak. It doesn't really look that bad, or to me, he must be really picky if that's a problem, because I don't really see much of a problem there, honestly. I mean, I can feel just the tiniest thing there with my thumb, but it's like very minor. He says it's also got a lot of major scuffs that might be able to be buffed out. Nope. I can tell you that. You don't buff those. You're down to bare wood. He says, lastly, I have a LR Bags pickup through the end pin. He says, I might want to replace that back to the Fishman. He says that he thinks the LR Bags is too soft for this specific mandolin. Well, I don't know. I've had a lot of LR Bags experience with pickups. Not too many on mandolins, to be perfectly honest with you, but I can tell you, no uncertain terms, it is huge where you put that pickup, where you place it on the top. If you get it in the wrong spot, it just won't, you know, produce like it could. That may just be the only problem you have, is just where you have the pickup. If you put it in the right spot, I would imagine the LR bags will be as good as any. And I don't mean to pick on fishmen, but I haven't heard a fishman yet that I would say sounds better than an LR bags, and that's just my opinion. I have no association to LR bags other than, quote unquote, I sort of am a dealer. I really don't push them very much because, quite honestly, LR Bags doesn't really treat their dealers all that well, in my opinion, especially not their small dealers. I mean, you know, if you're buying huge quantities of them, you could probably make it worth your while. But for me, I just say buy them off of eBay or buy them off of Amazon, because I don't really get a break, and it's not worth my time to sell them, really. There you go. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth about LR Bags. You know, I think they're a great pickup, don't get me wrong, mechanically, physically, all that. But price-wise, for me personally, they don't make any sense for me to really push them and sell them. This thing is in bad shape here. My guess is if he had the fretboard narrowed, they probably took the fretboard off. They probably didn't get it glued on there with the neck straightened up right, and that's probably where the problem is. And I'm just talking out loud. I have no idea. I'm afraid to almost touch that part of it, because if he's picky about that, I don't know that I could do it any better, honestly. That part there is pretty good. But I can tell you for sure, there's way too much underbow. Seriously, when I press it down here and press it down here, there's got to be 20 thousandths. There's got to be 20 thousandths between that and the fret. See if I can measure it. I don't know if I can, and do it, hold it, and try to measure it and all that at the same time here. Come here, Caleb. No, I can do it. I can do it. Never mind.
Unless you get a capo.
Yeah, I could get a capo. I know that, but that would be too easy. Yeah, it's 20 thousandths on the money. You can't really see it, and you probably can't see it even if I show you, but it's 20 thousandths for sure. Actually, it's probably more than that. I'm going to 25 right now before I hit resistance. 20 there, 25 right there. Yeah, it's crazy, ridiculously underbowed. Like beyond any I've ever seen really on a mandolin. So it needs to be fixed big time. I'm not sure how we're going to fix that. Let me take the truss rod cover off and see if by some miracle that maybe they've got a two-way truss rod in it and maybe they've adjusted it backwards, because people do that. And for those of you who are skeptical about this possibly being a two-way truss rod and being adjusted backwards, I am not lying to you when I tell you this. This is a black and white fact. 8 out of 10 that have a two-way truss rod come in this shop backwards. And that's no kidding. I'm not joking. You think, well, then it must be my problem. I must be the one that doesn't know. Trust me, I know righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I've been doing mechanical things since I could barely walk. So you're preaching to the choir if you think you're telling me something about that. I can tell you right now, that screw doesn't want to come out. It's stripped or something, and it doesn't feel like it wants to even think about coming out of that hole. Let me get my close-up specs on here and see if I can assist it with a pair of pliers. Yep, that's what it takes. It's bored out oversized, they would say, if this was a car engine. Boy, I would love it. Nope, this is not a two-way truss rod, I don't think, unfortunately. I was really hoping that would be the issue, because that would solve the problem. Nope, I don't think that's a two-way truss rod, just looking at the nut. Okay, well, the strings are tight. I always say never tighten the truss rod with the strings tight. Let's loosen the strings first thing. And I mean like loosen them a lot, especially in this case because of the severe underbow that's in this. You would be silly to try to tighten the truss rod with the strings tensioned up and try to pull that much underbow out. And when I say loosen it, I don't mean like loosen it a little bit. I mean like let's loosen them all the way where they barely make a sound, if they make a sound at all. Yeah, I could see why he's not happy with this mandolin. There's no way you could play it like this. All right, so now with all the tension off, does the neck look any better? And the truth is, barely. Just barely, barely, barely any better. So it's not like it helped it a lot. See if this one will work. Yeah, it's tight already, and that's sad. I'm trying to loosen it now to see if I can get anything to... I can't even get it to loosen. Boy, it's... Yeah, I think we're in severe issue territory here. Oh man, I can't even loosen it. Let me try tightening it again. I don't think it's going to tighten. No, I can't get it to budge one way or the other. Somebody has put some horrific torque on that. So I'm going to go get my 1/4-inch ratchet set and see what we can do with that. Okay, you can see I have the 1/4-inch drive going on here. I'm trying to be gentle. There it goes. It broke it loose. It's going loose now. Yeah, it's loose now. Yeah, that's more force than it should take to straighten the neck. So there's bigger issues here than just truss rod. We will have to talk to the customer because this is going to take some exceptional effort. My friends, I contacted the customer, left him a message. I did not get a hold of him and told him what I think it needs. And what I think it needs is I think the fretboard has to come off. I think we have to investigate why this neck is so warped. It may just be that we could put some back bow in the neck and glue the fretboard back on and we'd be good to go. That we could just get that lucky, and even that's hard. You know, I mean, it's not simple. But you know, I just thought I'd mention something to you. You know, looking down this like I do, you know, a lot of people put a straight edge on them and all that. I don't need to do that. I seriously don't. I can look down this sucker and see every problem it's got. And I can tell you right now, and I'm not exaggerating at all, that fret right there has got to be a minimum of 50 thousandths higher than the lowest point on this neck. I mean, it goes up on a ski ramp like you would not believe. Now that's with the strings loose. So loose, it's got a huge problem. And that's the truss rod's loose, everything's loose. It's got a huge problem. I don't know if that shows up any better than not before, but if you can look, maybe you can kind of see down this angle there, and maybe you can see how high this jumps up right here. I mean, at the end, it just jumps up. It's terrible. It really is. It's about the worst I've ever seen. So that's why he's not happy. But, well, you know, I told him, I said, the good news is it's on my desk. The bad news is it's on my desk. It's kind of bad news for me and him both, because I got to fix it and he's got to pay for it. That's assuming he wants to proceed with it, because I did have to tell him it's going to be minimum of 8 hours work at $100 an hour. I mean, I really don't think it could be done less than that, though I've been fooled before. Sometimes the ones I think are going to be the hardest turn out to be fairly simple, and this could be that. I mean, if the fretboard comes off easy, if it all matches back up easy, and you know, we get it glued back on, I mean, you know, it could only be a couple-hour job. You just don't know. I have to quote them as high as I think they could go, you know. So we're in a hold pattern until we hear back from the customer. We'll let you know what he says. Well, another day has dawned, and I did get to talk to the customer on this Sam Bush mandolin, and guess what? He wants to go for it. He wants it fixed right. You know, I told him, I said, no wonder you couldn't play it. You know, if a guitar neck, as long as a guitar neck is, had this much underbow, it would be way too much. So, I mean, I give you some idea on a short neck how bad this one is. That means we gotta take this apart. You know, I've done that a million times, but right now a sharp stick in the eye, I might just trade. You know, if I can get a sharp stick in the eye and you take this off, I might be happy. Anyway, we'll get started. Here we go. Well, I should have turned the camera on a little sooner. I've had this sitting on here. This is my, I call it my bridge heater, but I use it for removing fretboards too. I had it sitting up here for quite a while, and the fumes off of it started burning my eyes, and it feels exactly like, and it smells exactly like CA glue. So I'm wondering if they didn't glue this fretboard on with CA glue, which is kind of strange. I do have a knife heater, but for my purposes on this kind of thing, this is just as good, works just as well. Aha, came off fairly easy. That's a good thing. that's off of there, and we'll move on to the next thing. Now I'm going to clean this up. I took the nut off too, and I just thought I'd show you something. The peg head veneer on this is really, really thick. It's also elevated right there where it comes up, and it's, in other words, what I'm saying is you could stick something under there. The end of that's going under there that far, so it's kind of weird why it would be elevated like that. I've never seen that before either, and I don't really like that because I like everything solid. Everything pushes against everything and makes everything solid. With that being in the air like that, it's not as solid as it would be if everything was solid there or glued solidly. Anyway, I'm going to clean this all up. See what we're dealing with. Like this is sticking up high here, which wouldn't help anything. This fretboard extension is walnut, which is, you know, something a little unusual on a Gibson, I think. I don't think I've seen walnut like that before. Maybe that way on all these Sam Bush, I don't know. There's a little bit of glue buildup right there on the end. I want to clean that off because I don't want anything sticking up on the end. Okay, this is supposed to be a really straight edge, so let's just see how straight this neck is. There's an underbow of about 4 or 5 thousandths, I would guess. Let's see if this thing will tell me that. It's probably, this is only down to 10 thousandths, so it may not go under there. Oh, actually, it's more than I thought. It's bigger than it looked. It's going under there 23 thousandths. Oh, yeah, you can see it coming through on this side right here. Gee whiz, right there, it's going under more than that. It's going under there, dang near 40 thousandths. Depends where I'm at. 30 thousandths for sure. I think I was letting it move a little bit. About 30, almost 30 thousandths. Right there, exactly 30 thousandths. There's quite a bit of underbow. 30 thousandths, keep in mind, 10 or 12 thousandths is relief in a guitar neck. For a piece this short to have 30 thousandths underbow, that's just nuts. I mean, that's just crazy. That would be like if you double that for a guitar, that would be about a 60 thousandths relief on a guitar. And I'm pretty sure 60 thousandths relief would be ugly on a guitar. So that gives you some idea what we're dealing with here as a basis of comparison. It's pretty bad, pretty bad. So we'll see what we can do about that. Oh, Caleb, he came up with another one. He said this is a slide mandolin. It's meant to be played with a slide. You're not supposed to note the frets. You know, he might be right. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe the customer was mistaken all along. Thought he had a regular mandolin. But in all seriousness, we're going to have to do something to straighten that out. Okay, if I'm being real critical, there's a couple of other issues too. All right, now I'm going to try to explain this. You know, I'm exaggerating both of it. This is tipped this way back here. The peg head is tipped that way, like that. So there's a real twist in this neck too. Real twist. In fact, I don't know if that's measurable. That thing is really twisted. Like a lot. I'm going to get the camera and see if you can see the twist. It's twisted a bunch. Can you? I don't know if it'll show up. I'm going to try to get the camera at the right angle to let you see the twist in it. There's a huge twist. I think you can see it there. That's really a lot. Can you say new neck? No, I'm not going to make a new neck. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, I'm going to have to think on this one. Do I do a wedge again? You know, I did that on that Kentucky that had the real twisted neck. Or actually, that one wasn't so much twisted, it was just cocked at an angle. This one is cocked at an angle, but it's got a big, heavy twist in it also. No wonder he was having trouble playing this thing. It just isn't easy being me. That's all I can tell you. There's t-shirts that say that if you go to my website. Okay, with all the revelations I'm making here, I'm trying to decide kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg. What's the first problem I have to deal with? You know, it's not a simple answer. In other words, is the back of this cocked enough to care about? And I think the answer is yes. I think this is cocked up high here on this side compared to this side. So let's just measure down right here at the edge. Okay, right there at the end, I'm getting 451. Right there on this end, on this side, I'm getting 416. So there's a pretty big difference there. Actually, it's even bigger than that if I measure it again here. 455 I'm getting, and 415. So that's 40 thousandths difference from one side to the other. And that's just in a short little section here. You know, that's a pretty big difference. So what am I going to do about that? Well, you know, I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to take my finger plane and cut this side down, because this side's high compared to the peg head anyway. So this is part of the twist right here. And since I'm used to carving a lot, I kind of feel like I know how much to take off of this to get the two sides equal. Let's see if that's closer. It's still pretty high. Didn't take off much. I got some more to do. Let me get my cheaters on here. This thing really cuts thin slices. It probably looks like I'm taking off a lot more than I am. 438 now, 415. So we're in the 20 thousandths range now, so we've cut it about in half. So let's take off some more, huh? Why not? Well, to my eye, that's already looking better. That's 434 right at the moment, according to that. 411 or something, you know, which is close to what we had, 415. Yeah, we're still high on this side, comparatively anyway. Yeah, 427 roughly, so it's still high. Getting close though. It just depends on how you measure this too. It's hard to get it, but consistently this is quite a bit higher than that side, by roughly 15 thousandths at this point. So we're going to take off some more. Okay, that looks pretty darn close. I think we about got it now. Those measured exactly the same that time. 415 on the money, both of them. So now I'm going to try to blend it. Make sure there's no hump or anything in there. Sitting my straight edge on there, it looks pretty darn flat. Well, that looks a lot better already. Down about here, I think I can see where it's still a little high down in this far area down here. So I'm going to take this down a little bit. DeResta says if it looks straight, it is straight. So to my eye, this still looks a little crooked. And I'm just talking about the fingerboard area right now. I'm not talking about the peg head. The peg head is still twisted big time compared to this. Yeah, there's still a twist. Gotta put my finger on where it's at. Right there. Right there, it's high. Let me look at it this way, and this is a short ruler, so this kind of helps a little. Okay, I think there's a little bit of fall off here, so I'm going to try to blend it a little bit. If I can ignore looking at the peg head at all, which is hard to do, it's looking kind of like it's in one plane. A little bit twisted still, but not nearly like it was. Let's see if we've changed the way this measures now. Honestly, not much. It's still going under there quite a ways, but that's measuring right down the center, and that's just the underbow part. It's still going under there 24 thousandths or so. It helped it a tiny bit, but not very much. So I'm just kind of eyeballing through here to see where the different planes are. It's pretty good from about here to about here now. It's not really too bad, I don't think. I'm going to put this on here and turn it this way, and I'm looking down it to see if it's flat to the top. All right, so now I wonder, I think I've got the truss rod loosened up. In fact, I'm pretty sure I do. I'm just wondering if tightening the truss rod will get rid of that underbow. Yeah, the truss rod's loose. Because, you know, it might be that this truss rod is ineffective. It may not be doing anything. Okay, that's snugged up. It's not crazy tight. But that ought to be tight enough to have gotten rid of this underbow. Let's see if it did that. So now it's down to about 16 thousandths. But compared to where we started at 30, that's pretty good. The problem that I'm having with that is that I think that should have got rid of all of it. It shouldn't have to get it this tight to get rid of this underbow. So I'm gonna tighten it a little bit more. Again, I'm not going crazy on this. You don't go Hercules on these things. If you do, you will regret it. Let's see what that did. Now that helped a lot, or at least I think it did. At my preliminary thing here, that's now we're down to 10 or so. Well, it depends. Now, when I get down in a certain spot, after I get down here, it's actually still a lot. And that's where that ski ramp was down. It's still 15 right there. Down here, it's like 15. So there's still a big underbow in this neck. Boy, it's hard to not look at that peg head, because that peg, this part of it's fairly in one plane right now, but when you look at the peg head is still really cocked up compared to this. Wow, I don't know. Still not happy. Do I dare take the truss rod out? You know, if the truss rod can't even make this flat, how is it going to make it flat with the fingerboard on it? And I don't think that's going to happen. I would say that truss rod has very limited effectiveness at this point. I'm going to tighten it a little more. Again, I don't want to go Hercules on it. I'm just snugging it up a little more. And let me see if that helped. Not much. Still in this low area, it's still 15 thousandths. But it's better up. It's better. It's better from here back. But right in this area here, it's still about 10-15 thousandths. Okay, so the other option would be to carve that out of there. But the problem with doing that is that you still don't have any truss rod adjustment. I've often said you don't need much truss rod adjustment on a mandolin. You just need a straight neck. If we could get a straight neck, we'd have it whipped. But man, I'm not so sure about that even. I don't know, if you're only using your eye and the straight edge, looking at it like this, you would think, well, that's pretty flat, that's pretty straight, and it really does look that way. But when you start using your precise tools like this and you put it in there, it's not all that perfect. It looks pretty dang perfect to your eye. In fact, I would challenge almost anybody to look at that and see a problem. I'll try to let you see it on the camera. I don't know if you can, but if you just look at that like that, and I'm trying to hold it, it's hard to hold it at an angle, that's a heavy straight edge. But if you just look at it like that, there's not much of a problem there. But when you start poking this thing in, this thing goes in 15 thousandths, you know, in places. Right there is almost 15 thousandths, it's over 10. Anyway, it's hard to hold it this way and measure it, but the point is, looking at it with your naked eye, you would say, oh, that's really flat, but when you measure it, it's not flat at all. I'm trying to look at it with my eye down like this and decide where the real problem is, where I could carve it out of there, and I can kind of see it. Right in here it's high, but the problem is the whole thing's dipped this way, and I hate to carve any more out of this, you know. But it's a little high right in here. And I mean, when I say a little high, I really do mean just a little bit. That looks better. Maybe if I flatten this off a little more. Some difference. It's about 12 thousandths. That's not much, but that's an improvement in the right direction. I just can't figure out why that truss rod's not pulling that up. So many people still, even after all the shop talks I've talked about, still feel like the truss rod should change your neck angle. It does not ever do that. It just doesn't do that. All it does is it's got an underbow right in this area, and when you tighten it, all it does is pull the middle of this up. That's all it does. It doesn't change anything back here. It doesn't really change much up here either. It just changes right here in the middle and lifts that middle up, because the string tension puts a bow right here. And that's all the truss rod does, is pull that middle up. Why this one's not pulling it up, I don't know. Wow. Yeah, it's still 12 or so thousandths. It's a lot of work getting in there to the truss rod, but kind of think that's what I need to do. You know what it could be? It could be that the truss rod had an underbow in it and it got tightened so tightly that it straightened it out. I'm going to go off camera and think about this, because you know, if I could carve it straight, glue the fingerboard back on with a little bit of back bow, a tiny amount of back bow that is, then I think the problem's probably solved. Like I said, I've built quite a few mandolins of my own and have been playing them for 30 years, and I've never put a truss rod in them, period, and they've never needed one. It's all about how you get it straight and glued at the beginning. So I wouldn't feel uncomfortable leaving this as it is if I can get it completely flat before I glue it together. That's the big if right now. It's difficult to show this because of the camera angle and my working angle. But here you can see it doesn't slide under there really at all. And then you get about here, and now it goes under there more than 10 thousandths. Right in here, there's about 11 thousandths now, so I'm improving it a little bit, 11, maybe 12. What I'm doing is I'm sanding off of this area here and kind of blending it. And then I'm sanding up here at the very, very end also. When I look down it now, I can tell where I've sanded and where I haven't. This area right here is kind of dished out. You know, very minimal amount, of course, but this is the low area right in here. I would call that perfectly flat on that side, but on this side I can actually, well, I can wiggle my ruler. You can see my ruler's wiggling in the middle. Here I can't wiggle it in the middle. I don't know if you can see that, but in the middle it doesn't move now. But here in the middle, you can tell it's free. So it's this side right here is low, right through here. Not that much now. More than likely I could set this up to play okay. But the thing is, I've got it apart, and I don't want to put it back together if I'm not 100% sure. You know, I kind of don't think the truss rod's affecting anything at this point. And I'm going to just see here if I dare enough to try it a little bit more, or if I'm going to break it. I don't think the truss rod is helping me, and I don't think it's really going to fix my problem, because the problem is that this side of the neck is low. If I put the straight edge on the treble side of the neck and slide this in there, it basically is flat. It doesn't go in there. On the base side of the neck, though, where it exaggerates the problem, it goes under there dang near 15 thousandths still. Right at 15 thousandths. Right here it's 15 thousandths exactly. And that's on the base side of the neck. 15 thousandths isn't very much. It's about 3 human hairs roughly, but in a distance, you know, well, actually it's a distance about this long. And the problem is when you glue that down and clamp it down, your fretboard is going to have an underbow right there on that side, and you'll be able to see that. I'm not crazy about these large frets. Wish that wasn't in there, but they are. They're kind of worn at this point. Filing any mistakes out with the frets is not a good option unless I replace all the frets, and that's not a fun option either, because it typically creates problems, as many problems as it fixes. The customer was upset about the fact that the binding doesn't come to the end of the fingerboard, and it doesn't. And I don't think I can fix that. It doesn't come to the end here either. And the problem with that, if you plane the end of the fingerboard off, then you've just shortened your fret scale, and you can't do that either. So it's kind of a complicated problem. He also would have liked it to be narrower here, and the only way to make it narrower is to take all the binding off, narrow it, put it all back together, and that's a lot more work too. It can be done. All of that can be done. It's just, I don't know if it's worth it. If it were my mandolin, I don't think I'd do that. Having said that, I don't know if that's what he wants. I mean, I guess that's what I'm here for. Quite honestly, it still looks like a ski ramp, but that may be this buildup. So I'm going to clean the back of this off. It doesn't look good right now, I can tell you. I almost think it'd be easier to make a new fingerboard than to mess with this. This thing is so warped, and all the frets need to replace. And if he wants it narrower anyway, you know, it's almost easier just to make a new one from scratch. I can almost think that's the best way to go. I may talk to him about that. But first, I'm going to clean this off and see if it looks like it would even work, because right now, I'm not sure it will. Okay, that's really slick and clean now. Let's see when I lay it on here, if I can tell any difference. All right, I got my head down looking down it now. It looks pretty good, but I'm not convinced that it'll lay as flat as I want it to lay. I think part of it is that it's kind of got a memory. Yeah, I'm not too crazy about it. The problem with making a new one is all this inlay. I mean, there's just a lot of work to make a new fretboard. It's not a 5-minute job. Something else I hadn't really thought about is that it is also a radius fingerboard, and this is a radius bridge, which, you know, it's not that big a deal. I mean, I know how to handle all that too, but it's just not my preference of a fingerboard at all. I imagine the customer really likes that. I mean, that's why he probably bought this model, obviously. He probably likes the radius, and he probably likes the big frets. To me, it's just clunky as all get out on a mandolin. That's the way I would describe it with the big frets. But everybody's different, you know. Everybody has different things they like, so I can't base this fix on what I like, I don't guess. But I will talk to the customer about the possibility of making a new fingerboard. We'll see where that goes. It's been several days since I've looked at this mandolin. You know, I've got it pretty well flattened out and leveled up through here. Talked to the customer, and we're going to put a new fretboard on it. We're also going to put a new truss rod in it, because this truss rod is very ineffective. It doesn't do much at all, if anything. I'm going to try to route it out of there. I've got the Proxon. Some people have asked why I'm using the Proxon all the time, and the reason is, the only reason I use the Proxon is because it has the bass. I like this bass better than the bass that I have for the Dremel, although the Dremel bass is okay too. This one's a little easier to adjust. But the Proxon router itself, in my opinion, is nowhere near the router that the Dremel 4000 is. The Dremel 4000 is way more powerful, just all around a better router than this Proxon is. This bass, though, is a nice bass, and that's why I use it. Whenever I need to use the bass, I use the Proxon. Whenever I don't need to use the bass, I use the other Dremel. So that's knocking it out. I think I'm smelling CA glue again as it's burning through that. I smelled that when I took this fretboard off too. So they must have used a lot of CA glue on this. That stuff is very strong smelling, and it doesn't agree with me very well. So anyway, I've got to get the rest of this routed out of here. I'm not going to film all of that. I'm just going to keep setting this deeper and keep routing and keep routing. And if I run into anything that I think's interesting, I'll show it to you. I'm going to tell you something here that, you know, a lot of people are going to doubt or not believe. But if you watch my video on being a genetic defect, you'll know that I have a very, very, very strong sense of taste. It's 1 in millions. According to my doctor, he said like 1 in 12 million people. Because of that strong sense of taste, I also have a very strong sense of smell. And some things really set off my smell big time. I mean, like, just kind of go through my head and just really I can't hardly take it. And one of them is routing this out. And you think, well, what could that cause a smell thing? Well, it's the CA glue. They've used some CA glue in here somewhere, and every time I hit it, it just burns my eyes, burns my ear, my nose, and it's really difficult, believe it or not. And I've asked Caleb if he could smell it. I think he could smell it a tiny bit, and Melissa couldn't smell it at all. But boy, it really nails me when I hit it. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you the first little stab at it there. It's not very deep. I'd say that's about a little over 1/16 of an inch deep. And I have to stop here because the base hits the peg head, so I can't get all the way up here. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and just keep routing this section and route it down. My thought was, I wonder if they put enough CA glue in here to actually lock the truss rod in where the truss rod wouldn't function. And that may be the problem, because this truss rod just doesn't do anything. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm just speculating at this point. But I'm going to route down a little deeper and see if I get to the rod yet, because so far I'm still hitting the filler strip. Well, you can see I broke through in this one little spot here, but it must be really deep back here. You know, I'm just speculating at this point, but it looks to me like the truss rod's probably really, really straight. Just went straight through and didn't have any curve in it. If it doesn't have a curve in it, it cannot straighten out the neck. At least not very effective. The truss rod's really, really deep. You can see I keep deepening it and keep going back here and cutting until I, expose the rod. But it's very, very deep. It's deeper than I put them in. It can't be but just a little ways inside of this back of this neck, which is okay, I guess, if it's all done right. But I'm not so sure this has been done right, or at least what I would consider right. But anyway, I'm going to drop this down a little bit more and try to cut out this last little bit. Hopefully we can get access to the whole thing. Well, you can probably hear my wife out there running the tractor, cutting the grass. She's in her glory. That's the way she likes to do things. But guess what? As I'm cutting this out, I keep dropping the bit down and as I go back further. And what I think I've just discovered is the reason this truss rod was so ineffective, that virtually it is straight from here to here. I mean, like perfectly straight, it looks like. And then from about right here back, it looks like it's diving down and going in. In my opinion, it should be kind of straight like right here, but from about here to about here, it should have an underbow. And then kind of straighten out again back here. In other words, it's kind of flat, underbow, and then come up and kind of flat down to this point here. And then when you pull it tight at both ends, which, this end's anchored, and so you're pulling it tight from this end, then that pulls the middle up, and that's what pulls this neck up. Well, in this case, pulling it up is only going to happen back here, and that won't do a thing. It needs to pull up in this whole span right here, especially. Actually, as far up as my finger here. It should be pulling this whole area up. That's what it appears to be. Again, I haven't got it completely uncovered yet, but I started just reaching in with this little chisel to try to knock it out of there. But I think I'm going to have to go ahead and deepen this and knock this last little bit out. I'll go ahead and do that on camera. That's why I do kind of like this Proxxon's base. It's an easy adjustment, so you can just turn that right there and lock it back in. It's a very quick adjustment. I say one thing, they sure put it in deep. I don't put mine in as deep as this either. You can see that I still haven't gotten through it here. We are very deep in this neck now. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not the way I do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's different than the way I do it. I think the way I do it works better, because this one didn't work at all. I mean, this truss rod seriously did not work. I'm not exactly sure where they have it anchored. It looks to me like they dove it down into the heel, which is okay, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. This kind of a mess here. I'm gonna have to do some figuring out. I just really don't know what I'm dealing with, because it looks like it dives all the way down into the heel of this neck. I don't know how well you can see this, but you can see that the truss rod, I think you can see that it dives down into the neck heel. Now there's some conglomeration there, kind of like a nut type thing here. I don't know if you can see that either. It's bigger right here, but I can't tell what that's doing exactly. And I can't see how to get it out at all. It doesn't seem like, I don't know. It's almost like they grew it in there somehow. I can't figure out how they got it down in there. Unless this neck is in multiple pieces that I'm not aware of. I don't think it is. I don't see how they got it down in there, because it appears to be bigger than the truss rod slot. Might be that because this is dovetailed, they might have inserted it through the back of the dovetail. That might be how they did it. I don't know. All I do know is it's making my life complicated at the moment, because, you know, it's a truss rod that just flat doesn't work. And in my opinion, it's put in almost backwards from the way it should be. That's just my opinion, you understand. I don't mean to pick on whoever did it. What I'm trying to say is there's many ways to do everything, and maybe they had something in mind, but this can't pull the middle of the neck up, which is what a truss rod is supposed to do. So I'm going to take the Dremel now, handheld, and try to route out this last little bit here, because it's getting so deep I can't really go any deeper with this. And I think I can handle it by manual better, actually, where I can see what I'm doing. Trying a little different camera angle there for you, because I'm going to be using the handheld Dremel now. And anyway, I'm going to try to get this last little bit out of there and let you see what I'm doing. It appears to get solid right past there, so I think I'm going to have to stop right there, it looks like. So let's clean this up. I think I see the end of it right here. I'm not sure that's the end of it, but I still am not 100% sure how they got it in there. Very strange, very, very strange. I guess I'm going to take the Dremel and hand route out all this up in here and try to get this out and see if it becomes looser somehow. This has got to come out anyway, so I might as well do that next. And get rid of all that mess, and then we'll see what happens. I'll show you what that all looks like here in a minute once I get this all routed out. So now that I have all this unearthed, let me see if I can tell you what I don't know about this, because that's about where I'm at, because I really don't know a lot. Maybe you can see this, maybe you can't. I don't know how good this is coming through, but you can see kind of a spot right here. This is a kind of like, it would almost be like a washer or something right here. It's bigger, in other words. I'm assuming, I mean, it's standing up proud from the truss rod, a good 1/8 inch almost. So I'm assuming it's an 1/8 inch into here and an 1/8 inch into here. That's an assumption on my part, because I'm assuming it's round, but it may not be. It may just be the width of this channel. I don't know how they got it down in there, is my point. I would have thought it was round, but it may just be the width of the channel. But what I can see down here, and I don't think the lighting is going to let you see this, but we'll try. The end of it it goes past this big round thing, and the end sticks down to about here. And it appears to me that end has pulled out of a socket back in here where it used to be glued in place, or epoxied in place, or CA glued in place, or something. So it looks to me like this is pulled forward about 1/4 inch is what it looks like. Well, that would be well and good, except that this isn't 1/4 inch long unless somebody cut it off. And it kind of looks like that could have happened, because if you look here, there's a lot of damage in this area. There's just a lot of damage in this area, and so someone could have cut this off. In fact, there's even Dremel tool marks in this area. So my bet is somebody cut this off. I bet it pulled out 1/4 inch and they cut it off here. That's what I bet. Because It just ain't right at all. I am really glad we took this all apart because this truss rod, when I said it was ineffective, that was an understatement. All right, so how am I going to get it out of there? I don't really think I know how. I think what I'm going to do, and this is kind of crazy, but sometimes you got to do crazy things. I think I'm actually going to take a Dremel tool and actually cut the rod in half right about here in the middle and see if I can't get it out that way. Because I don't think I can get it out the way it is. I don't really know what this is down here. I just can't figure it out. I don't know how they got that in there. I thought maybe they put it in through the tail end, through the dovetail, but and you know, maybe still and all, maybe that is how they did it, because now I don't know. I'll keep looking and see if I can figure it out. I actually see something here. Maybe I can pry it out. Yep, I can. It's a piece of wood that's in the way. Pry this piece of wood out of there. That was the end of the filler block. Maybe they did come in through the back end. Yeah, I kind of think they might have. But the truth is, I'm still confused on it. I really just don't know. So I guess I'm just going to have to go to drastic measures and cut this rod in half and see if I can get it out of there. Because I don't think it's going to come out this way. I might get lucky and pry it up, but I don't think so. It looks like a mess. I'm glad we took this apart. Okay, let's just kind of back up the truck a second and see where we're at here. The one thing I know for sure is this truss rod is of no value whatsoever at all. So we have nothing to lose. I think what I'm going to try, before I go to the trouble of cutting it in half, I'm going to try something here. I'm going to put this punch right on the end of the truss rod like this, and I'm going to tap it with this hammer and see if I can drive it back that way a little bit. I don't know if it'll do it or not. I'm just seeing if that might free it up, because it's definitely messed up. Yep, it drove back. Yep, it drove back. There you go. That almost convinces me for sure that that truss rod used to be back there quite a bit further, and that they pulled it forward and cut it off. Almost positive of that now. And I also think I can see how they put it in through the dovetail down there. So that's how they did it. Now how am I going to get it out? Because I can see how it's wore a channel out. You'll never see it, and I don't think I can show it to you, but it has, that washer thing that I was trying to point out has pulled forward and wore a big channel out inside of here. I think you can understand my point there. I think that makes sense. In fact, I'm going to tap it back a little bit more yet, only because that'll put it about where it was originally, I believe. Yeah, that's pretty close. But now you can see how short the truss rod is up in here, see? So they pulled it out. You saw where it was at before. It was way out here. They had to have pulled it out there and cut that all off. You know, this has been in 3 shops, so my guess is someone did that after Gibson. I doubt Gibson did this, but who knows at this point. All I can tell you for sure is it's total crap, and it has to come out of there, and it has to be done right. And it can't be done right with that rod. That rod has to go somewhere else. And I don't know how to get it out of there because of this big washer that's on there. The only way I can see getting that out is if I route a little channel on both sides of the slot here to let that washer come out, because it ain't coming out of there any other way. If I tried to pry it out, it would bust this neck wide open. Now, having done what I just did by driving it back, all that did was just kind of prove to me what the problem is. But on the other hand, I don't think I helped myself any, because by driving it back, that put this big nut closer to the actual joint. I would have been better off trying to take it out away from the joint, because I'm afraid if I route through here now, I'm going to weaken this whole joint. So, having done all of that, I'm going to see if I can drive it back to where it was. Now, I mean, you know, learning as I go, guys. I don't know everything, and it's hard to tell what really happened here. So now I kind of think I know what happened. All right, good. I can pry it forward with this chisel. And this is a piece of junk chisel, by the way, so don't feel like I'm ruining a good chisel, because I'm not. But now I can maybe get in here and pry it forward the rest of the way. Now I've got it back to where it was. So that'll give you some idea that that truss rod had moved a lot. Now you can probably see the truss rod up here again. So there you go. That's what the problem is. It's just up to me to fix it. And I kind of wish it was up to you instead of me. But I'll figure it out. I think I'm just going to do like I said, and I think I'm just going to cut a little slot right here on both sides so I can lift it out of there, because I don't see any other way getting it out of there. Kind of looks like that sort of worked. I don't think I got it good enough yet, but for a first attempt it looks like that's what I need to do. I have to do some more of that, but that's looking pretty good. If you can see what I'm doing there, I'm making a little slot so that that big washer can come out of there. I'm going to work on some more of that off camera a little bit. If I feel like I've got it loose enough to get it out of there, I'll show you what that looks like. You know, I've got a pretty good slot on both sides there. I'm not 100% sure it's big enough yet, but I have a screwdriver specially made for things like this. Actually, this screwdriver, I keep it in the metal shop because I'm always needing something with a little square hook on it like that in the metal shop. But I went over and borrowed it for here, and to be perfectly honest with you, it was just a hair too wide, so I sanded it down a little bit to fit this narrow slot here. And it goes under there, and I'm underneath the end of that now, and I'm pulling up, and I'm just trying to see if it's moving, and I don't think it is. You know, I just didn't figure I'd get that lucky the first try, but anyway, it does get under there, and I do think I can lift with this, but I'm going to have to do some more reaming on these edges here to try to get it loose, because it's just not going to come out of there yet. I don't know if that loosened it up or not. I tried to knock out a little bit more. Try to get a leverage here where I can pry up on that. I'll rig up something and I'll show you what I rig up. Okay, I don't know that I'll be successful with doing this, but you can see I've got these two blocks sitting on this, and I've got this hooked screwdriver underneath the tail of this, lifting it up, put these blocks as close to it as I can, and now I've got this little tiny pry bar underneath the screwdriver head, and I may break the screwdriver, but now I can lift up with some prying pressure here, kind of like pulling a nail. And unfortunately, I don't see it giving, and I'm pulling pretty hard. So it's not loose yet. You know, if that didn't pull it, nothing's going to, because I was pulling pretty hard. Let me tap it a little bit, see if it goes down at all. Maybe I pulled it up more than I thought I did. Yep, I did actually. It does go down. So it's not stuck in the sense that it's not movable. It is movable, but we've got wood in the way jamming us in here. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get it out of here, but you know me, I'll find a way. I kind of think that the slot's even wider than this end of this thing back here, so I may just chisel out a little bit of width here. I can always fill this back in with epoxy or something. I'll figure out a way to straighten out whatever I mess up here, but I do think I've got to widen it out a little bit, because it seems like that whatever this thing's connected to is a little bit bigger than the slot is. And I would say they probably put it in through the end of the dovetail, is my best guess. But that actually looks like that ought to go now. I really don't know why that wouldn't go, but I'm gonna give it one more shot with my rig here, and if that doesn't work, well then I'll do some more dremeling, I guess. Can you hold those blocks there, Caleb? Well, it's not, it's lifting. I can see it moving, but it isn't going to come, I don't think.
Oh, it's moved a lot.
Yeah, it's moved a lot. It's, I actually think that this back end piece is wider than the slot is, so I'm going to have to do some more trimming. I'm going to tap it back down where it was. There, it's back down where it was. And I can see that now. I can see it's actually riding up on the side, so I'm going to have to trim this back side off. I'm going to use this junky chisel because if I hit the metal, I don't really care. Some people might say, well, just take the neck off of it. Well, you ought to try taking the neck out of a dovetail like this. It's not that easy. Pretty much rather have 2 or 3 sharp sticks in the eye than to try to take that neck out. That ought to do it, I would think. It may still be a problem in these 2 side slots also, but let's see if it moves a little more now. I kind of think it might. Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. There you go. Now that's what you call ingenuity there. And you can see how much wider this is here. See, that's what wouldn't go through the slot. And I'm sure they must have put a big hole through there and put this in, and this was anchored in that hole. But it all got pulled through and pulled forward, as you can tell. And now my goal is to drive this back out of here. And here's what I'm going to do there. I'm going to make a sled out of this screwdriver. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. That'll slide real easy. And I can tap on this, and Caleb will hold the back of the mandolin. And I'll just tap on this, and that'll drive it right out of there. See, it's sliding right over that screwdriver. It makes it a sled. You think I've ever done anything like that before? Well, yes, I have. And in my opinion, that is exactly upside down. It should have been like that. I mean, it should have been like that. Then it would have worked. Like that is exactly upside down. That's the way it was in there. Completely upside down, in my opinion. Now, who did that? I don't know. Did they do that at the factory? Did somebody else do that, monkeying with the thing? I don't know. But it wasn't right. I can tell you that for black and white certainty, 100% completely wrong. Well, the card filled up on the camera, but I was saying that, this was certainly 100% upside down wrong in there. And, I mentioned that I caused a little bit of damage here, but honestly, only a tiny, tiny bit of damage compared to all the other problems this thing had. And I would actually rather have it just like it is right here with the neck on it than having this piece of junk in there. So overall, it's way better than it was. And now we will get on the road to making it right. And I'll show you how I do that.